important. And the first thing that I would say is that all knowledge is not created equal. I think we have to begin.
Because energy creates power and power creates opportunity. So we have to see who gets these opportunities.
We need to begin to invest in the human infrastructure. AI is not a technology challenge, it's a human capacity challenge.
The call to action from this panel is not to slow innovation, it's to Hello, and welcome to Panel 1, the Human Infrastructure and the 2030 Agenda. This event is called AI or Be Left Behind, but before AI can serve the SDGs and meet the 2030 Agenda, we have to ask a more fundamental question. What must already exist, and who is responsible for building it? People are not left behind just simply because they lack access to AI. They are left behind when they lack the power to connect, the human and health capacity to participate, the knowledge to interrogate what they're given, and the agency to shape the systems transforming their lives. As a critical care nurse and board member of SONSIEL, I've come to this conversation from a field where we learn very quickly that having the most sophisticated technology in the room does not guarantee a good outcome. The human holding that tool matters. The system surrounding that person matters. Trust matters. Readiness matters. Our three panelists see this challenge from very different sectors, but they're describing very different layers of the same infrastructure. Frauke Barfues brings us power, both the literal energy that makes the digital participation possible, and the deeper question of who gains power when infrastructure is designed differently. Dr. Matilda Kerry brings us capacity, what happens when innovation reaches a health system, but the people are expected to use it have not been adequately prepared, supported, or trusted. And Yvonne brings us agency, not simply whether people can access AI, but those who acknowledge it, recognize whose voice it privileges, and who gets to shape the future that it is building. So that is the journey that we will take: power, capacity, and agency. And throughout it, I want us to keep returning to the one question: who is responsible for building the human infrastructure that the SDGs actually need? Frauke Barfues is an energy and sustainability strategist from Germany and represents women in youth advancement in the UN dialogues on sustainable development and inclusive innovation. She advises organizations on the energy transition and works at the intersection of energy, AI, and sustainable development. Her work is driven by one critical belief, that energy is not only infrastructure, it is the foundation that enables opportunity, inclusion, and sustainability. Frauke, I want to begin with you because the energy is often treated as a technical infrastructure conversation. But in conversations with you before, you described something much bigger. You spoke about renewable energy projects where access to power did more than sustain homes. It helped educate communities, expand opportunity, and shift agency back towards villages, including women and girls whose access to education and public life may otherwise be constrained. So I want to begin with this question for you. Why should energy be considered a social development issue rather than only an infrastructure issue? And how can AI accelerate SDG 7 for social development while reducing inequality?
Thank you, Grace, for introducing, and hello, everybody. Well, I will start with the first issue you mentioned. Energy is treated as an infrastructure issue. And of course, we are talking about critical infrastructure because it is necessary for hospitals, for emergency services, for national security. And in my case, working as a consultant, we often talk about energy in terms of wires, in terms of power grids, power plants. But it is so much more because it is infrastructure for every individual. It is kind of human infrastructure. With reliable energy, without it, there's no education and there's no participation, there's no entrepreneurship, and often also no healthcare. So this is very necessary, and it is the foundation for every other sustainable development goal to develop and to get bigger. So for me, energy is not just infrastructure because energy creates power and power creates opportunity. So we have to see who gets this opportunity to participate. And I love the introduction we got for this session, that it is the question of who can participate, and it is a chance to participate and to involve everyone. So AI can help us to accelerate, and therefore we can use AI in the energy sector to make systems smarter, more efficient, and more accessible. And its greatest contribution is ensuring that people and not just technologies benefit from this transition.
Yes, thank you. And I do want to actually push just a little bit further because you had spoken to me before about participating in global AI dialogues, yet you've noted that these conversations can remain kind of abstract. So when you were in the room, what is the one action that you would advocate which governments, businesses, and international organizations should take today to create a truly just transition?
Well, I think at the moment, I'm in Geneva at the UN Global Dialogue on AI governance, and I have one key takeaway. Every technology optimizes for the question we ask. So it is our responsibility to ask the right questions and not just to maximize profits, to maximize return on invest. Of course, these are the obvious questions we learn to ask, but we could ask differently. And then this will help us to get to the right opportunities. And then it will expand the opportunity on how people can accelerate and how everyone can participate. So I think it's very important when it comes to businesses, governments, or international organizations that we do ask who gains access and who gains opportunity and who is still being left behind. And we should ensure that the amount of people and who are left behind gets smaller or not even widened, because AI has such a great possibility. It is an extraordinary opportunity to democratize access, because it's the first time that knowledge, expertise, or entrepreneurship is becoming less dependent on where you are born or who you know, what your network looks like. If you have energy and if you have the devices, you can participate from wherever you are. And that is an amazing chance for us. We should use.
So I think I hear from you that energy can be neutral, but not necessarily the access to it, right? So energy determines whether someone can connect at all, but who controls that infrastructure, who can shape that autonomy, education, economic opportunity, and political power, the political will. So this is the power that we're talking about, both literally and figuratively. But when technology physically reaches a community or institution, that does not mean that people are ready to benefit from it at all, necessarily. So that takes us to capacity. And I would like to actually introduce now Dr. Matilda Kerry, who is a public health physician with expertise in global health and development programming. She's the founder of the George Kerry Life Foundation, which leads cancer awareness and prevention programs across Nigeria, reaching over 100,000 families with life-saving health education and access to reproductive health issues and their services. She's a passionate advocate for building human capacity to ensure that AI drives equitable progress towards the SDGs. Let's take a quick look at your work before we go into your questions.
Hello, I'm Dr. Matilda Kerry. I'm a public health physician with a special interest in women's health, inclusion, and early childhood development. I am the founder of the George Kerry Life Foundation, where we believe that a woman's access to healthcare should never be limited by her geography or her socioeconomic status. At the George Kerry Life Foundation, we are building a future where healthcare is inclusive, equitable, and accessible for everyone. Through community outreach, health education, cervical cancer screening, breast cancer screening, early detection programs, and inclusive programs, we have reached thousands of women with life-saving services and information. We have worked alongside communities, healthcare workers, and partners to strengthen primary healthcare and bring prevention closer to the people who need it the most. Because when diseases like cervical and breast cancer are detected early, lives are saved, families stay whole, and communities grow stronger. Our journey is only the beginning. Over the next 20 years, our vision is to expand access to preventive healthcare, empower more women to take charge of their health, strengthen primary healthcare systems, and ensure that no one is left behind. Together, we can build a world where quality healthcare is not a privilege, but a right. That is the vision of the George Kerry Life Foundation.
That's some really wonderful work, Dr. Kerry. I've been in some of the same resource areas that you have been, and your experience gives us a very good concrete example of the gap from its power to capacity. So through your work in Nigeria, you've spent years building preventative screening programs, but you've also worked with AI-supported screening technology that includes software supporting point-of-care diagnostics and more. And what strikes me when I hear you speak is that the barrier is not simply whether the technology existed. Nurses were being asked to do work with innovation without always having the training, competence, or even the foundations of understanding of AI needed to fully take hold of it. So I want to combine two questions that you've asked yourself. From your experience in community health, what is the most important lesson that you've learned about introducing new technologies? And what does that tell us about the single most important investment that countries must make if they genuinely want to benefit AI to support SDGs?
Well, thank you so much, Grace. And it's really been an incredible journey working in the grassroots in Nigeria for over 15 years and bringing cervical and breast cancer awareness to thousands of women. And one of the biggest lessons we've learned about introducing any form of technology is that there needs to be trust by those who are using the technology and the end beneficiaries of the technology. This is foundational. It's so important. And aside from that trust, before we can build that trust, these two parties need to understand what the technology is, how it functions, why it's beneficial, how to harness the benefits. And then we can start thinking about capacity, helping them to use that technology. It's unfortunate that in retrospect, capacity came first, trainings and trying to help the healthcare workers make use of the technology without them really understanding what the technology was and how they can kind of integrate it into their practice. So in the long term, we fell short, and of course, the technology was not embraced. So in retrospect, what I think should come first is foundational literacy for both the healthcare worker and the users of the technology. Next, we can start thinking about maybe digital literacy. And once they're comfortable using technology, you can then build their capacity for a specific type. We failed with some of these technologies because the end users didn't trust them. The technologies worked fine, but then they wanted to see the specialist, the doctor, the human who could explain, who they had trust in, and who they could go home feeling better that their situation and their condition had been managed. But when you give that woman, that person who doesn't understand technology, some foundational understanding, and then she begins to trust technology, then we will have much more success. And it's the same for AI. AI is growing rapidly. It's just expanding at a phenomenal rate. And these grassroots women don't understand what AI is. So once you bring an AI-enabled technology for their use, unfortunately, because there's trust issues, because there's an understanding issue, and they just don't have basic literacy, talk less of digital literacy, the technology will not be embraced, and then we would have much less success.
Absolutely. And, if we deploy a tool without investing in the people with the trusted professionals who are expected to make it work, then who's accountable when that adoption fails? Because that distinction matters. Technology deployed is not technology adopted. And technology adopted is not necessarily that capacity built that you were talking about comes later. You can put AI-enabled tools into a clinic, but if those frontline professionals don't understand it, don't trust it, as you say, and no one to question it, or you can have a functioning system around it, then we can't necessarily even create progress. So I want to actually now move towards, now that we have capacity, still another question. Who gets to shape these systems? And who knows how to do that? So now I'd like to introduce Dr. Yvonne Watson, who serves as Vice Provost for Global Strategy and Academic Partnership at the New School, leading strategic vision for global engagement, expanding international reach and deepening impact. Your research explores fashion education through the lens of social justice and the inclusion of Indigenous knowledge. You're also the founder and CEO of Kindred Coterie, a nonprofit intersecting artisan crafts, material cultures, research and advocacy, and immersive design experience in traditional communities. So, Dr. Watson, thank you for being here today. This is where your work introduces what I think is a necessary complication. Your research centers around social justice and education and the inclusion of this Indigenous knowledge, and your work spans design, global academic partnerships, these community supply chains, and even women entrepreneurs. So your lens asks us to go beyond where people can simply access that AI. What I would like you to answer is thinking about SDG 4. It asks us to guarantee quality education for all. But if the AI systems that we are building can only recognize already validated epistemologies and forms of knowledge that we are genuinely expanding access to education, or are we really scaling the same historical inequities more efficiently?
Thank you for the question, and the provocation as well. It's extremely important. And the first thing that I would say is that all knowledge is not created equal. I think we have to begin, there. I have had the privilege to, participate in my career working at institutions where we have a significant way in which we validate, create, and think about the quality of our education. And being at the new school, Parsons School of Design specifically, I mean, I've led a lot of those conversations around the quality of our education, the creativity, the pedagogy, etc. And even there, we have often struggled in our positioning, being a school that thrives on the breadth of students who we can appeal to, and they are international. So we are local to New York, so knowledge-centered, that is often New York-based or European, Western, etc. But then we draw an incredible breadth of international students as well. So we've always been looking at that tension point between what it means to be local and at the same time global. And then if I look at wider parts of my career as well, I think about the places where I've been able to participate as well, and just thinking through, what our previous speakers have been speaking on as well. Who gets to participate? What does access actually look like? And then I'm thinking about my experiences of working, for instance, with a group of women entrepreneurs in Ethiopia, and thinking about the infrastructure issues that they have to manage, negotiate, navigate in order to be able to achieve some of the same goals that we all want to be able to achieve in order to be able to thrive. So it does require us to think about how are we framing, when we think about the SDG 4, when we think about that as knowledge, access, what knowledge, whose knowledge is it that we are thinking from, okay, what is the lens that we are focusing through in relation to defining what that knowledge looks like, because that will determine who is actually able to access.
Yes, absolutely. And that moves us beyond this AI literacy as simply a teaching tool and how to teach people to use a tool, right? The real literacy must also come from the capacity of the people who are willing to question the tool, to critically think about it. Who built this? Whose data trained it? Whose knowledge does it recognize? Who is invisible? And who gets to decide what expertise is, right? The difference is the access and agency. So I'd like to bring us all back together now and ask a couple more questions. Frauke has shown us that with the power and infrastructure, people cannot connect. Dr. Kerry has shown us that without health, trust, training, and workforce readiness, innovation does not become meaningful capacity. And Vice Provost Watson, you showed us that even with the access and capacity, participation can still mean entering systems built around somebody else's knowledge and assumptions. So a question that I would like to ask any one of you, and not any of you are able to answer this first one before anyone else, where are policymakers and development institutions making the biggest mistake right now in addressing these issues?
Well, I think I'd like to start because it just matches up. They are asking the wrong questions. They are not, AI is just a multiplier, and the ones who are asking the questions, they determine what it multiplies. So I think this is very important. Just to make it very specific, if we, in my field, if we go on grid connection, don't ask who will we apply first, but we should ask which connection creates the greatest long-term value for the community. So not just going one after another but checking the impact, or not just asking how do we build a more efficient grid, but how do we build a grid that creates more opportunities? So you just have to switch your focus from not just being profit-driven, but to put the sustainability and the opportunities for the people in the center of what you're going for. And I think that is That's the very first step after every action will come after.
Thank you. And, I think I want to ask maybe, are the right questions, and Dr. Matilda and Dr. Watson, any of you can answer this question. Are the right questions then, are we investing in technology before people? Are we mistaking access for readiness? And are we inviting people into systems that they never had the opportunity to shape?
Yeah, I would like to add something to that, because we've just been speaking about, the pertinence of the right question. The fact that if we think about the onset of AI, it requires a particular kind of training, large language systems. So if we think about global north and global south, I see this in the research that I've been doing, particularly with artisan communities. Like, how do their voices from a technological perspective get to be included? We are training AI in very particular ways. We're learning. We are being developed to provide the right kinds of prompts. But if you are an artisan in a community where maybe you do have access to smartphones, but I'm very curious about what research is being done right now to ensure that the people who have been what I describe as stewards of land, a lot of the work that I've been doing, I've been really focusing on people, place, and land. Okay, but how are their voices included in the technology? How are these ancient systems, ancient wisdom that actually bring a lot of grounded options and theories to the world? How do those actually get to be threaded into this particular technology at this moment in time?
Thank you. And Dr. Kerry, maybe I'll close with you. You can respond or add on to either one of those questions, or I could also invite you to give a call to action. So if you could change one policy or investment decision in the next 12 months, what would have the greatest impact on human infrastructure readiness as we move towards 2030?
Yes, I'm super glad you asked me that question. The other day I was listening in on the progress towards the 2030 SDGs from the United Nations, and SDG 5, which is gender equality and women empowerment, is lagging behind all the other SDGs. And if we want to bring it back to this conversation, and what I've been trying to just communicate on literacy and capacity building, is that we cannot afford to continue ignoring the big elephant in the room. And the truth is that, 11% of the world are still illiterate. In lower middle income countries, almost 50% of the people are illiterate, and 2/3 of that are women. So it's really no shock that SDG 5 is lagging behind. We need to begin to invest in the human infrastructure. AI is not a technology challenge. It's a human capacity challenge. We need to start building people. And of course, I'm biased towards women, and we see the numbers in women. We see the lag in SDG 5. So my message to governments... It's not even just governments and countries. Anyone that can empower a woman, start embedding foundational literacy, digital literacy, and AI literacy into the work that's being done. We don't have to wait for a grand plan. We can begin small. Tiny drops of water make a mighty ocean. If we have this forms 3 pillars of literacy in every program, I think we'll be accelerating efforts towards achieving not just SDG 5, but all the SDGs.
Absolutely. Really wonderful panel and last call to action. So we've just heard from 3 different languages that are all speaking the same truth. Energy, health, and education are not soft conditions. They are the load-bearing infrastructure. The call to action from this panel is not to slow innovation, it's to build the human infrastructure that allows innovation to become equitable and participation, using insights from the front lines as us practitioners. Because if we invest in artificial intelligence without investing in the human agency to deploy it, we will mistake that for development. And we will not solve the problem of being left behind. We're simply going to scale existing inequalities and automate who gets to move ahead. Thank you so much for your wonderful insights. Dr. Casey, back to you.
Wow. Thank you, panel 1. I am so inspired and encouraged, and I have been empowered personally. When I just think about what was just shared here, I have to repeat these 3 quotes. Energy creates power, and power creates opportunity. Healthcare is not a privilege, but a right. All knowledge is not created equal. These amazing women changing the world, changing people, and using AI and technology to continue to empower and build humans. Thank you.
It's all in our hands, this life of time that's given to us all. It gathers round each night, each morn. We watch it pass and grow. It is all in our hands, it is all in our hands. With every field and rising sea, can hear the sounds of all, and with every change we'll always be where hope's not lost but found. It is all in our hands, it is all in our hands. It's given to us all.